Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for September 10th, 2025. We've been talking this week about the changes in the world following the conferences in Eurasia, in which a new world economic order is being put forward, which is open to the West to join. At the same point, we're seeing an absolute evil in the West, and it's creating consequences for those people behind it. There is a saying that at a turning point in history, the chickens will come home to roost. Now, if you look that up on the internet and see what it means, it essentially says that actions have consequences, that bad deeds will be punished. Now, I know many of you hope that that's true, but you're not sure how it will happen or what you can do about it. There seems to be so much evil in the world, and it's acting at present against nations and people. And we want to see evildoers punished. But there is a higher principle than revenge, and that is justice. And when it comes to countering evil, justice depends on people acting through institutions to overcome the evil. Simply rioting, anarchy may be an expression of your inner frustration, but it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't put an end to the evildoers. In fact, they use it. There are false flags to provoke that kind of reaction, to then allow for a suppression. So what do we do when institutions become the instruments of evil? When the institutions to which we entrust the power to do the good either turn a blind eye to the evil, are complicit in it, or participate in it. Well, the American Revolution was a movement to establish justice. And what was it? It was an anti-colonial revolution. And that's what's going on today in the global South. After 500 years of suppression, of looting, of pillaging by European colonial powers, the global South is finding its voice. And is finding it through institutions such as the BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the African Union. The potential for a new security architecture and a new development architecture is here. What will happen in the West? Have the chickens come home to roost in the West? Well, there are two cases I'm thinking about today. One I'll discuss today, which I brought up yesterday, which is the situation in France as an epitome of what's going on in Europe as a whole. The other is the absolute evil of the Zionist regime in Israel, which I'll largely discuss again tomorrow. But we saw on Monday the collapse of the French government, of Emmanuel Macron. And Macron has been leading the charge for the so-called E3, the Europe 3, those countries which are committing their future to spending on military production for war with Russia, while their people are seeing their standard of living decline and their hopes for the future going out the window. Now, what is true in looking at this, excuse me, I lost my thought there for a second. This is true as well for the nations that are also part of the E3, the United Kingdom and Germany. Now, as Macron lost the vote of no confidence, his prime minister was defeated. He's got to go back and either come up with a new prime minister, a new coalition, new elections, or rule by decree. But in any case, he intends to stick to the same policy. He's not going to change his policy. And the question is, whose interest is he serving? Is he serving the interests of the people of France, the people of the European Union? If you look at his record, he came to office as an investment banker from the Rothschild and Company. And he worked as a partner in investment banking at one of the major international banks. Well, the same is true in Germany. Merz was the head of BlackRock in Germany. And along with Starmer, the three of them govern on behalf of the biggest banks and the global corporations, not for the people. And today they're committing their countries to war with Russia, to war against the BRICS alternative. Why? Because the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the other new partners, represent the interests of the global South, the rejection of the 500 years of colonial rule, and an effort to create the circumstances where the people of those countries can use the resources, both in terms of natural resources, but also the people, to act in the interests of their own country. And this is really the basis of where justice comes from. It's when people turn their efforts to make the government work for the interests of people, and not just for their own nation, but in collaboration for mutual benefit with their neighbors and other nations. And so we're seeing France and Germany and Great Britain committing themselves to destroying this potential. And it's not on behalf of the people of those countries, it's on behalf of the financial interests largely centered in the city of London. Now, you're being told by the corporate media that the BRICS and the SCO and the Global South are against the Global North. Well, what they are against is being treated as subhumans. What they are against is the racism that's characterized the policy on behalf of the Anglo-American establishment toward the people of the Global South. But the desire, as expressed by Putin and Xi Jinping at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, is not to go to war against America, but to convince the American president to join with them in the projects of mutual development, of integration, of connectivity, and so on, which would be in the interests of the people of Europe and the United States. Now, Lyndon LaRouche spent his entire life fighting for a new development architecture. And he believed that the chickens would come home to roost. But what did he mean by that? That the people of the countries in the advanced sector will fight for the interests of their nation and will do so against the corporate cartels that thought they had a monopoly of power. This is what the Unipolar Order is, as opposed to the idea of a polyphony, of a harmony of interests for the nations of the world. So we're asking that you help us bring about real justice. And what this means is start by circulating the call that is linked in the description box today, the call from Helga Zepp-LaRouche for the West to work with the Global South, to have diplomatic solutions, to put the future of all human beings in the same pot against the interests of the globalists and the bankers. Change is possible, but it has to come from the people. Now, I mentioned the question of Israel. This is a despicable case where the Zionist regime, in one day yesterday, carried out attacks in Syria, Lebanon, and in Qatar, in Doha, where there was a meeting to discuss the ceasefire, an end to the war in the fighting in Southwest Asia. And when the Hamas leaders went to meet, the Israelis attacked the meeting. Now, what can you say about this? You call on people to reach a ceasefire and then you kill them, or try to kill them. And this is on top of the genocide that's being committed every single day, with the move to eliminate the Palestinians as a people. People like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir deny that there is such a thing as a Palestinian. So I'll discuss this tomorrow, because it's important to understand that the same networks in the city of London that are pushing for war against Russia and possibly against China and against Iran, the same networks are the ones that created the Zionist movement as an instrument of British imperial domination in this area of Southwest Asia. But the point is, this era is over, and we have to have a mobilization that will use the institutions that can be deployed and convince the institutions that are on the other side to stop the looting and pillaging and achieve a new security and development architecture that serves the interests of all sovereign nations and all sovereign people. Now, later today, I'll be doing an interview with Helga Zepp-LaRouche, our weekly webcast, and there's a link to that available in the description section. It starts at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you can't catch it live, you can pick it up in the archive. And if you have questions for us, you can send them to us at questions@schillerinstitute.org.